Welcome back to Happiness by Habit, the podcast where we dive into the daily rhythms, mindsets, and bold moves that create joyful, purpose-driven life. I'm your host, Silvana Pimentel, and today's guest is someone who is redefining what it means to lead with clarity, content, and confidence in the digital space. Bradley Rausch is a content creation, strategic marketer, and the go-to CMO for founder-led companies looking to scale through storytelling. With more than 5 years of experience, he's mastered the art of transforming busy entrepreneurs into bold thought leaders with just 2 hours of their time each week. Whether it's launching branded podcasts, building social media ecosystems, or turning value into virality, Bradley and his team help high growth companies create content that converts while staying authentic and aligned. Today, we will dig into habits, strategies, and mindset behind this method and how joy plays a role into the journey. Bradley, welcome to Happiness by Habit.
Thank you for having me on, Silvana. I will do my best to live up to that. That is great. I appreciate it.
Wonderful, absolutely. Let's start with your journey. How do you step into the world of founder-led marketing and content creation, Bradley?
Yeah, so I started out, I've always been very entrepreneurial. Started first business at 13, teaching piano lessons, how to put myself through first 2 years of college and built that up. I actually decided after 2 years of college to step away from that, not my vibe, and got into working with mentors and different high ticket coaching, consulting programs, things like that, and worked as a high ticket closer for about 3 years. So this meant working with consulting companies, coaching companies, usually in the B2B space, helping them to close and then upsell their highest ticket clients. A ticket sale minimum was 6 to 10K, somewhere around there, and then I've also sold 40K, 60K, 100K packages and things like that as well. So very hardcore, very very cold, very pushy, etc. And I made my way up to the best company at the time in the space in 2021, and I left there in 2 months. And I left because I saw at that level of scale, there were 9 figures, profit through the roof. I saw the fact that to get to that level of scale, at least the way they did it, the client experience suffered tremendously. And so with that being said, I looked at, I'm like, how I want to make my mark in this? What do I want to be associated with? And so I left that company. I went back to the clients I've been working with and I said, hey, let me run your client success. Let me take a hand at that. And fortunately, a lot of them agreed. So I got into client success and working to not increase the revenue and the profit of the company by selling and closing, but doing it through actually increasing the LTV of the best clients of the company. And so I got really, really passionate, very into that, very experienced with that. And then over time, I also kind of discovered a passion that I have for marketing and social media and content. I'm a content creator myself, podcasts and Instagram, LinkedIn, etc. And so that all kind of meshed into this business that I have now, which is so grateful. It's amazing what I get to do, which is I work with founders, usually between $1 and $5 million in top line revenue, who would like to simply become a thought leader in their space and create a lot of systems and processes around that don't take a bunch of time, that don't take, sitting down every week with a filming team and a filming crew with the lights and the camera and the equipment and everything and feel the pressure of that. So what we'll do is 3 things. Number 1, we'll help them first off systematize their back end, make sure that they're getting referrals, testimonials from their best clients, increasing the LTV of their best clients, finding the best ones, kind of shooing away the rest. And then we take all of those experiences, create viral front-end content out of it to, again, continue to attract those best, highest quality people. And then from there, once those 2 things are situated, the sales kind of capacity of the company becomes a little bit less required, a little bit less, hardcore, a little bit less cold. It becomes a very nurturing process, which is just what I love to see. And then finally, I will work with the founder to kind of elevate them out of the day-to-day of the operations and the rigmarole and just the monotony of running the business, and help them find and recruit some really, really high quality leaders into the company to help with a lot of the executional operations. For my biggest client right now, I'm kind of an acting COO kind of number 2 position, and we're recruiting for her entire leadership team right now. And we are she's based here in New York, and she's a real estate broker, and it's going really, really well. That's what I do. That's what I do now. How I've come to do it.
Amazing, fascinating, Bradley. And one of the things I love of what you just said is that the clarity, but also the Then you compress this into just a couple of hours of work a week, which is
Yes.
very key because most of these individuals are very busy people. So you created a process that turns just 2 hours a week into a full content engine. How
Yes.
did this model come to life, and what problem were you trying to solve for founders?
Yeah. So, biggest thing I think that any founder can relate to, especially as the business grows, is a lack of time, just pure and simple.
Mm. Mhm.
And it was interesting at first, and it's like, hey, listen, yeah, let's sit down with the lighting and the camera and the equipment and block off half of your day, once a week to film content and da 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 da. But there's two issues with that. Number one, that's not what the market wants to see anymore. If this was 2015, I would say, great. You need the professionalism. You need the aesthetic. You need the brand. You need the logo in the bottom left-hand corner. Like, you need the kind of aesthetic of the brand to support you. But now it's actually you that's getting in front of the brand. People buy from people right now. There's optionality, there's choice in the market for every single thing. I don't care what you do. Your client has a choice of whether they need to work with you or not. And it's not always been that way. But where we are now, the competition is so intense and so fierce. So the reality is they'll buy from people, they won't buy from businesses. And it's kind of the same side of the same coin, but it's a really, really different, really, really important difference. And so, with that in mind, I was like, okay, we need to find a way to make sure that founders can compete on a quantity level while also increasing the quality over time based on what scales and based on what's best for their company. And so I was like, you know what? We're going to create this entire system, and it's really, really fascinating. So what we'll do is we'll sit down. I will do, if we're in person, we'll go to a podcast recording studio. Again, that big client I have, we go to her office. She's got a huge office on 50th Street. We will sit down and do essentially interview style stuff where I will sit there, kind of prepare questions ahead of time, say, oh, tell me more about this, da 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 da. They'll be speaking, and then I'll stop them sometimes, be like, wait, no, that's a really good point. Talk more about that, and kind of that person to just bounce off of. If it's virtual, we'll do it over Zoom or something like a Riverside, etc. And it really, really is powerful. I've seen for these founders just to have essentially somebody to bounce ideas off of, because it's very isolating. It's very lonely to sit there and think, okay, well, what content do I need to create today? What reel do I need to post today? Like, it's just overwhelming and it's isolating. And so having somebody else come in and say, this is the content I've done the research on. This is the content we really want to make. This is what we want to talk about. This is the opinion you want to share, because da 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 da. And of course, it's all kind of custom to the founder. And so that's a really big part of the process. And then I have I've got an executive team. I've got a video editing team that will then come in and make amazing content from all of that. But it really only requires about an hour and a half of the founder's time a week to sit down and simply create the content and go through approvals and things like that. And then we have a fully fledged, content system that posts daily content, video, text content, short form, long form, etc., on basically any platform that we want. Because then we're also able to take that video content, and I've got my EA team turning that into text content of those little kind of snippets of, those opinions and thoughts that the founder has. And so it's just a really great process. And back to the client success piece as well, we'll be able to take, once we kind of systematize the back end, we'll be able to take that and say, hey, so your client, Timmy, he just had a really, really big win. Tell us about that. Or maybe let's interview Timmy and what his thoughts were and things like that. So it's all of the client success and taking the best clients with the highest LTV and ascending them through your offer, but then it's also spotlighting them, their experience, their thoughts, their troubles, their hero journey on the front end as well. That creates a lot of trust. So the two really, really work together. Really great.
I love it. Very interesting, Bradley. And you work with some major players. What separates a founder who thrives from the one who just burns out?
I think, the expectation of perfectionism or just the aesthetic, I think, is something that is really difficult for a lot of people to overcome, especially if you're in a relatively public facing business. You're very successful. You're making a mark, especially, I've got clients, specifically some of my female clients that are really trailblazing their industry. Maybe they're the first female that is at the level that they're at. They have this idea, and it's absolutely valid and 100% well founded, this idea that everything they produce from a public facing side needs to be aesthetic and perfect and make sure it reflects kind of that standard, right? Totally fair. Absolutely respect that, and I completely support that, and I understand where that comes from. However, is that practical? Is that sustainable? And the answer is no. So it's finding the balance between what is something that we can do at a sustainable level that also meets some or all of the standards that you would like to reflect in the brand. And so we had that conversation right off the bat, and we'll usually kind of find a happy medium. But I think back to your question of what kind of separates those that are really able to scale with this versus what burns out, it's just that expectation of I talked with so many founders that are like, I've set aside the 4 hours of my day. I didn't really want to, but I did. I've set aside the 4 hours of my day to film content and have the lighting and the camera and the fancy equipment and da 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 da. But it's never as perfect as I want it to be. It's never as
Mm,
it's never the aesthetic that I wanted it to be. And it's like, oh, I just start and stop all the time, and I never feel like I never get any content out with any consistency. That's door number one. That leads to burnout because your expectations are
mm,
way higher than what the reality is actually going to be. Door number two is saying, listen, I accept that it's never going to be perfect, but I also expect that the quality will get 1% better every single day, so long as we're staying consistent, competing on the quantity. That's where we can come in and
mm,
really make sure that your systems, that your sustainability is in place. Because the reality is, in order to compete in 2025, you have to have a certain level of quantity. That just where we're at. If this was again 2015, 2019, even COVID, I would say post once a week on Instagram, post 3 times a week on Instagram, post once every other week on LinkedIn. You're already heads
mhm.
above the crowd. Now it's not like that at all. And so there has to be a level of quantity for you to even be considered for the quality of what you do. So it's just a question of sustainability, I think.
Fascinating. And looking at the impactful, making the content impactful and improving and constantly making it better versus perfection. I can definitely see how that become a problem or a challenge. Interesting. You talk a lot about positioning founders as industry leaders, but no creators. Just what are the key elements of that transformation?
Yeah, so I something a term I love to use is thought leaders, right? And so people will often assume just because it's their normal daily life, because it's what they do every day, it's not interesting really to them, that nobody else would find their life interesting. Every person who's ever said that to me, I've proven them wrong because um the idea of running a business at the magnitude that most of the people I work with do is a completely foreign and very interesting, very exciting concept to 99.9% of the population. So I think it's the mindset shift between taking, always saying, these are the biggest wins that I have. Oh, I just landed this $10 million deal and can do da 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 da. Let's make content about that. I'm like, okay, fine, we can do that. But what I actually want to make content about is what you had for breakfast this morning as a founder who just landed a $10 million deal. I want to make content
Mm,
about your thought and opinion about a new legal ruling that just passed. How do you think it's going to impact the industry? I want to know your thoughts and opinion about this person you just brought onto your team that you're really excited about. Why'd you bring them on? What does hiring look like for a company doing $5 million a year? Like, I want to know, and it's saying I as a reflection of kind of the public, from
mhm,
a
mhm.
viewership perspective. We don't want to know about the big amazing wins and all this stuff that appears in the magazines and da da da. Great, fine. We want to know how you think, how you feel about things. We want to know what tiny micro decisions on an everyday level lead you to where you are now, because that is what other people can find inspiration from and what other people can replicate. Other people can't replicate closing a big $10 million deal. Other people can replicate a small mindset shift that you have that helps you have a more productive day. That is the stuff. And again, that might seem super mundane to you. It might seem like, oh, of course I think like that, like duh. But that is the stuff that people really want to see. So I think the difference between, like you said, industry leaders versus creators and thought leaders things is really just kind of demystifying and having a lot of transparency around all of those micro steps.
Very powerful approach, Bradley, because definitely that is an opportunity. Looking at it from that point of view, is an opportunity for the audience to relate and to engage more with that thought leader.
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate it. That's really interesting. So let's talk about podcasting. You help founders launch shows to become lead magnets and brand assets. What makes a podcast work in a crowded market, Bradley?
It's interesting. There's two things that come to mind. One is the sustainability piece. Again, you have to be executing at a certain quantity to even be considered for your quality. So doing, creating this long form stuff, YouTube, podcasts, etc. Again, it comes back to what do you need to do to make sure that you are producing at least a certain quantity. For YouTube podcasts, I would say once a week. What do you need to do? How long do the episodes need to be? Do the episodes need to be 3 minutes? Because that's all the time you have. Great. Then you're producing one podcast episode that's 3 minutes long every week. Again, better than most people out there. So there has to
Mm-hmm.
be a quantity that you can perform at before quality will even be considered by the market. The other thing that comes to mind is the most interesting thing I think about podcasts that people will go to is 99% of podcasts are so surface level. They're so, hey, I'm going to sit down and have a chit chat with my friend about blah blah blah, and we're going to have coffee and talk about controversial topics and things like that. The podcasts that I've seen perform really, really well, and the podcasts I help my clients set up, are shorter on average, but very tactical, very action oriented. So it's like if somebody's coming in, I've got a real estate investor client, for instance, and he is, thinking about his, we just did a podcast episode the other day that I helped him produce on, his story of becoming an investor and how he took some hits for his clients and kind of, moved through that and then, built a business back and better from that. And, he was kind of sitting there storytelling and and kind of setting the scene, and it kind of started to drag on. And I was like, okay, hang on, Matt, we got the story. We need the actions now. We need the, I did this, I thought this, I felt this, so I did this. We need the step by step, because again, that's what people can replicate. That's what people can grab onto and say, ooh, I can use that for my stuff. So actionable, tactical, step by step. If the easiest kind of framework I like to use for this is, if somebody wants to talk about an outcome that they achieved in the business or like success they have, great, fine. What are the 4.5 steps you took to get there? And break those down for us in terms of, the micro things behind each of that. So I think, again, it's the sustainability piece, but then it's also making sure that you use, all of your time in that long form content to really prove and move the needle for somebody in terms of the action items.
Absolutely. Bradley, you offer ghostwriting too. How do you capture your founder's voice and values authentically while still making it strategic?
So honestly, it comes exactly from the founder. The great thing about the podcast setup that I use in terms of just, interviewing people, I'll also book my clients on other people's podcasts as well. And that obviously creates great content. We take the raw footage of that and chop that up, into shorter pieces. Sometimes is the text content and ghostwriting, is it exactly what they said? No, but it captures their essence. It captures what the point they want to get across. It captures their passion for, a particular topic, or on the flip side, it captures their dislike for a particular topic. It's just taking what they've said, taking their energy behind it, and then transferring it to a different medium.
Yeah, absolutely. What is your why, Bradley? What drives you to help people tell their stories and grow with a purpose?
Number one is the business, the business side. I've been working on this for 5, almost 6 years, and it's been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of iterations. But I've always known that I wanted to kind of be in this advisory capacity to my clients, and fortunately, like knock on wood, I'm extremely proud of the business that I built, and very fortunate. A lot of people gave me a lot of chances when they did not have to. And so just huge gratitude in my heart for that. And I think on the business side of things, I've always loved being a coach. I've always loved pinpointing and looking at those conversations. I was sitting down with a person that somebody had referred me to last week for coffee here in the city. We were sitting, she kind of started talking about her business and what some of her constraints were and things like that. And I just stopped her and I was like, well, actually, have you ever thought about this in this way? And it just kind of opened up this whole new pathway of thinking. And she's like, oh my gosh, wait, no, I did it. If I think about this in this way, then this other thing is true. And then if that's true, then that solves my problem here, and da da da. I think those conversations where it's like I can just even I can take them from 0 to 1, and then they can take themselves from 1 to 10, I think are just completely light me up. And, we just actually determined that this person doesn't actually need my services and didn't need to work with me, because we actually solved most of her issue in that conversation. And now she knows exactly what to do. She's going to write me a great testimonial on LinkedIn, and she might refer me people as well. But it's like, those kinds of conversations are just light me up. That's on the business side. On the personal side as well, my podcast is called Redefining Growth. I decided that, very, very long story short, had a really difficult panic disorder as a child, debilitating, couldn't get out of bed most days, was just anxious, depressed, panic attack, all the time, something. My journey over the last almost decade now, after leaving my parents' house, getting out of a toxic negative dynamic, has really just been about redefining what growth looks like for me. And so that's the inspiration for the podcast. And I also, what lights me up most, I would love to start some sort of a public speaking arm of my personal brand within, say, the next 12 to 24 months. And those types of things, my motto for the podcast is frameworks for life's hardest moments. And my kind of mission behind that, and why I do that, is because I've always been somebody who, I like to have frameworks. I like to have ways of thinking about things. I like to have concrete structures and things to think about. I don't tend to do well when it's, I've gotten a lot better, but I don't tend to do well naturally when it's something that's not easily understandable. And so, I share frameworks that I take inspiration a lot from others, for sure, but also some that I've created on my own that really help me in those hardest moments. And every time I share that, I always also have to share quickly that the kind of spoiler alert, or I'll tell you the end of the story before I tell you the beginning in terms of my personal content like that. The most important framework of all is your ability to trust yourself when there is no step forward. And I've learned that the hard way many, many times. And the acceptance of that, coming back to that, has always been the Achilles heel that I've had to focus on, that I've had to accept. No framework, no strategy, no tactic, no understanding, no concrete concept of something will help you if you don't trust yourself and believe in your own ability to find one when there isn't one there readily available. And so it's kind of like if somebody were to plant you in the middle of a forest and all its leaves and trees and crap is all around and you don't know where to, if you don't trust yourself to at least take the action to move forward in that instance when there is no clear-cut way forward, no strategy is going to help. No tactics going to help. No framework is going to help. And so that's kind of always the spoiler alert that I like to give on the personal side as well.
Oh, that's so powerful, Bradley, because I think that might be the reason why a lot of people fail. Like, for instance, when people start a diet, they say that I will do this, I will do that, or when they set a goal for something. But if they fail on their commitment with their own, like, there is no future there because you're not gonna trust yourself, which is supposed to be the person you can count on for the most. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Tell us more, Bradley, about that. That's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, there's one of my favorite things to kind of share with this is this whole idea of I guess let me say this. I started the podcast and literally kind of in a rage, if you will, because I just got so sick of hearing people online saying, the speakers on stages saying, if you don't have proof that you can do something, or if you don't have evidence that you can make a change in your life that you really, really want to make, or do something you really want to do but you've never done before, just go make the evidence, go make the proof, go do it. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, fine. But if you're anything like me and like over here, like mid panic attack, nauseous, can barely breathe, just go do it doesn't really fly. Like this isn't Nike. Like this doesn't really fly. I need
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
an action plan. I need a step by step. And so that was kind of where my first podcast episode was born, which is I created, it's obviously much been refined today, but what turned into I call it the craft method. And it's for creating an outcome in your life that you don't yet have proof that you can do. And it's a step by step kind of framework for how to do that. So I can quickly share that with you, which is so craft, each of those letters, CRAFT, stands for something. So C is commit to a time horizon. Don't give yourself the ability to renegotiate the rules, renegotiate the steps you're taking mid journey. Give it 3 days, a week, 3 weeks, a month. Like, give yourself a time horizon and say, listen, no matter what, rain, shine, hurricane, no matter what, I'm committing to this, because regardless of if you meet the outcome you want or not, you still get objective data on what works and what doesn't at the end of that process, and then you can reset a new one based on that. So C is commit to a time horizon. R is reveal not only your goal, but the action steps you're taking to the goal. People will often say something like, I want to go build the next billion-dollar business. I want to go build the next Google. Sally, your friend Sally can't come to you next week and say, oh, did you build the next Google yet? That's not how it works. If you instead tell Sally, hey, Sally, I'm going to build the next Google. I'm going to set up my website. I'm going to register my LLC, and I'm going to make 3 social media posts this week. Sally can come back to you next week and say, hey, did you make the social media posts? Did you set up the website? Did you do your LLC? So reveal the action items, the small micro things you're doing to get to the goal. A is for active curiosity, not criticism. The example I give with this is, when you're in the gym, you're on, say, the 10th rep of something, and you're saying, I really want to go to the 11th rep, but I think it's going to hurt too much. I think I think I can, but I don't think so. It's going to be too hard. It's going to feel too uncomfortable. You don't actually know. You've never done the 11th rep before. It might feel great. You might actually be like, holy crap, I can do this. You might want to go to 12. You don't know. So act with curiosity. Don't assume you know
Mm.
what it's going to be just because you're scared of it. The
Mm-hmm.
CRAF, F is for frame if then plans. Every one of us has certain situations where we're more likely, just based on past events, to stumble, to kind of fall off the wagon. Create a plan for what happens if and when those situations appear. If you decide you want to go to the gym, you decide you want to start losing weight, you go to the gym in the morning, but then you come home and then you I don't know, you go out to lunch with a friend and you decide to order dessert on the fly, and then you eat that and then you feel like crap about yourself because you weren't supposed to be doing sugar or something. I don't know. Make a plan before that situation happens for what happens when you maybe don't eat in the way that you would like to be eating, would like to be feeling your body. Are you going to punish yourself? Are you going to go and I don't know, run 10 miles to burn it off? Like, no, don't do that, because that's what you're going to do if you don't have a plan. So don't do that. Make a plan. Say, okay, I understand that I did that. Maybe I'm going to journal for 10 minutes about why I did that. Maybe I'm going to just go take a quick, 20-minute walk just to feel better about myself, more energy. Make a plan is healthy, that's helps you stick to where you want to be and the goals you're going to. The last one, most importantly, so CRAFT, it's to tolerate short-term discomfort. We often will assume just because we set out to achieve a goal, just because we go to the gym, you run on the treadmill for 30 minutes, you've never done any exercise before or haven't for a long time, you come home and you assume that the scale is automatically going to say, I lost 5 pounds. Not the way it works. So don't take the fact that it is uncomfortable at the beginning and oftentimes uncomfortable for the entire process. Don't take that to mean that it's not doing what you need it to do. Take that to mean that it is doing what you need it to do, that you are on the right path. Because if you were comfortable, nothing would change. If you were comfortable in your life, you wouldn't be in a position where you can actually force a change to occur. Because it's the basic definition of insanity. If you keep doing the same things over and over again and expecting the same results, it doesn't work. Expect and welcome the difficult moments, because that is what will allow you the capacity to change. That just kind of quick, framework and method there is, again, just was kind of born out of that concern and passion, that I had for kind of that topic.
I love the clarity of your message, Bradley. And you just say, like, I was making notes because you say many really cool and important things. Like the accountability portion, I think is key. Once you say it out loud, tell your plans and tell your goals, you can have a community or accountability partner or a coach to kind of make sure you are delivering on your promises to yourself. And that's very important. Also, the plan, there is a saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? But it's okay to fail as long as you fail forward. Like you are doing something, as long as you fail, not because you didn't do what you promised to do, but you did it, yet you didn't get the outcome that you were expecting. You kind of recalculated the route and then continue moving forward. That's the idea. Even though it's not gonna be easy, but it needs to be uncomfortable. And that's a last piece of what you say that really stuck with me, because I know that in order to grow, we need to be out of our comfort zone. If we are comfortable, if we are happy, if everything is good, then we are not growing. And there needs to be a little bit of being uncomfortable, and we should feel okay with that. That's part of growing and making it better and doing something extraordinary.
Exactly.
Fascinating. And I love the passion that you have for what you do, and I can see how rewarding it is. I'm sure it must be really fascinating to get to see these kind of results with your clients. Kudos to you. That's
Thank,
amazing.
thank.
Let's do a little rapid fire round. Let's talk about, I want to tell you some things and you tell me the first words that come to mind, okay?
Okay.
Let's talk about morning routine. Morning routine must have
Oh God, coffee. I mean,
coffee.
I don't function without coffee. I was coming back from, I went to Taylor Swift Eras Tour concert in Toronto, and the tiny little airport that we flew out of on our way back didn't
Uh-huh.
serve coffee. Like, what airport
No,
doesn't serve coffee? So
exactly.
the friend that I went with, because we got up, we were assuming that coffee was going to be at the airport. So we got up at, like, our flight was super early. We got up at like 4 a.m. Went to the airport, assuming coffee was going to be there. It was like 6 a.m. Hadn't had my coffee yet. Been up for like 2 hours, and they didn't serve coffee. And I'm like, I told my friend, his name is Martin, I'm like, I feel really bad for you because this next 4 hours is not going to be pretty. And it wasn't. I do not do
Man.
well without, I have to have coffee in the morning. So that is
Oh,
just something.
yeah, non-negotiable. Coffee is important. I got you. Favorite book on leadership or creativity?
Oh, favorite book on leadership or creativity. This doesn't quite fall into either of those categories. That kind of does for creativity. It's more on the personal side. My favorite book at the moment, it's called 90 Seconds to the Life You Love. And it's focused on this idea of your nervous system responses to difficult feelings. Oftentimes our feelings and thoughts and everything that, swirl through us, they're just trapped in our head, they're trapped in our brain. We overthink them, we overfeel them, etc. The reason why things like yoga and grounding and meditation are so powerful is because as soon as you can get that feeling physically into your body actually has, think of it like a fire exhaust system. Your body actually has a process to remove or to process through that feeling within about 90 seconds. Now, obviously, if there are, waves of the feeling that come up, then that's a new wave each time, etc. Or if it's a very intense feeling, it might take a bit longer. But the general gist of that book is how to move a thought or a feeling that's very uncomfortable, move it from your head into your body, and then your body, again, kind of the fire exhaust system, has a process for dealing with it and moving through it and moving out of it. So it's really, really fascinating. I would highly recommend.
I love it. I'm definitely gonna check that one out. Speaking of books, and this is not related to the quick fire questions, but what is next for you? I think, do you expect to write a book at some point? Because I would love to read that one too. That must be really interesting.
Oh, well, you're so sweet to say that. It's not on the plan for now. My biggest thing is, just building the business. I just hired. Gosh, I'm in the middle of hiring right now for a couple more people on my EA team. So that's really exciting. Again, I think within the next, say, 12 to 24 months, I would love to do something, some sort of consistent kind of public speaking engagements, things like that. So those are my two kind of biggest focuses.
Make sure to add the book. I think it's a really interesting book that a lot of people would love to read. So
I
add it to your
appreciate
plans, Bradley.
I appreciate that.
All right, let's talk about coffee, tea, or energy drink while strategizing.
Oh, coffee. I mean,
Coffee,
I
yeah, I
to drink.
figured.
Yeah, I used to drink. I at my height when I was like 21, 22, I would drink
Mm-hmm.
6 cups a day.
Bang, that's a lot.
Yeah. Now I have slowly rationed myself down to I have one in the morning, and then I have one in
Mm-hmm.
the afternoon, and that's that.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's very good. One word to describe your content philosophy.
Sustainable.
Sustainable. Your business, if your business journey was a podcast episode title, what could it be?
It's a really good question. Focus on the inputs. And the reason I say that is because the kind of consensus that I think will stop a lot of entrepreneurs from making
Mm-hmm.
progress, and certainly stopped me for a very long time, is doing everything because it ascertained or you expected it to ascertain a certain output. Instead of that, focus on, based on the information I have myself and based on the information that I have from others and their experiences, I
Mm-hmm.
believe that doing X, Y, and Z input will get me to ABC outcome. But even if it doesn't, I now have objective data for what X, Y, and Z does get me to. So maybe I wanted to shoot for, I don't know, this thing up here, but I actually landed on this thing down here when I did X, Y, and Z. So now I can recalibrate. When you focus on the inputs and not beat yourself up about the fact that you didn't achieve the output that you wanted, I think a lot of things become, again, more sustainable, and they become a lot more confidence building and a lot more kind of brick building versus saying, oh, I need to build the entire thing in one day or it'll always crumble. I mean, it's not the way it's built.
Yes, like there is a saying that goes, shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you will land among the stars.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. Bradley, we are about to wrap up. Is there any closing remarks you would like to share with us, and how can people connect with you?
In closing remarks, I would say I think again the biggest thing is just if you're setting out to do something, if you're setting out to do a task, make sure you can see yourself doing it for the long run, because that's the only way in the market we're in right now. That's the only way that you can make lasting impact on others, is if you make sure that you protect your peace and sustainability
Mm-hmm.
first as a priority. So I have my podcast. Again, it's called Redefining Growth. And then I make content over on Instagram and LinkedIn, and that's just my name.
Amazing. Bradley, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this episode and this conversation. You are really full of amazing insights on building systems that support alignment, visibility, and growth. That's really powerful. Thank you so much. I think our audience wanted to hear that. And actually, I am impressed with the passion that you have for helping founders. It is really infectious.
Thank you. Beautiful words. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course, Bradley. And to everyone listening, if you're ready to become a thought leader without burning out, you will definitely want to connect with Bradley. Follow him on LinkedIn or subscribe to Redefining Growth podcast and check out what his team and himself are doing with a couple of hours a week and how they turn that into magic. Thank you so much. Until next time, keep showing up boldly and build a life and content you love. Bye bye.